our healthcare system judging the worth of people's lives in a way that discriminates against people who have chronic illnesses and disabilities? This week, we're talking about our issue voter bill for February, the Protecting Healthcare for All Patients Act. Welcome, Stephen. Can you tell me a little bit more about what an issue voter bill is?
Sure. And hello, Sarah. Thanks for having me back. Yes, Issue Voter is a non-profit, non-partisan organization, and their mission is to give everybody a voice in our democracy. One of the ways they do that is by summarizing important federal bills, providing opinions for and against, and they put that on their website so that people can better understand what's going on with Congress. Bill Track 50 has a partnership with Issue Voter, so every time they summarize a bill, we put a link to it on our bill page so you can click through and see what they're saying. And every month we focus on one of these bills as our Issue Voter Bill of the Month.
I'm excited to dive into this one today. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that this particular bill, the Protecting Healthcare for All Patients Act, was making its rounds last year in January of 2023.
Yes, that's right. It was introduced in January 2023, as you say, back when the 118th Congress was all shiny and new and full of hope. And it made its usual journey through various committees and so on until in May, it stalled in committee in the House. But then this month in February 2024, it suddenly made a resurgence and in just 2 days passed through all the various hurdles in the House and transferred across to the Senate. Where it now sits in committee.
Wow, okay. So the bill is back and back in action, it sounds like.
It is.
From what I understand, the focus of this whole entire bill is about this metric that's called the quality adjusted life year. And this metric is already not very popular, right?
That's right, yeah. Quality adjusted life year is a metric that's used in healthcare. And it's a way of deciding whether a particular treatment or drug should be used within a particular healthcare system. And it looks at two different elements. It looks at how much does the drug or treatment improve your quality of life, and how long does it actually extend your life? And it crunches those two elements together to come up with a metric that is the quality adjusted life year. So how many good years effectively does the drug give you?
Is there anywhere that it's not used today?
Well, yes, in fact, it's already highly restricted in the US. So the first thing to understand is that this bill, and in fact the quality measure, is only for federal programs. So it doesn't affect private healthcare. And it's already prohibited for use in Medicare. That was part of Obamacare many years ago. And it's already restricted in Medicaid. But where this bill takes it further is to reassert the prohibition in Medicare, to extend that full prohibition to Medicaid, and also to other federally funded healthcare programs such as CHIP, the Children's Health Insurance Program.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So the other thing that I was reading about this is that the congresswoman who drafted this, Kathy McMorris Rogers, her kind of take on QALY is that QALY can be used to discriminate against people that have chronic health conditions or disabilities, effectively saying that their lives are worth less, and so they shouldn't be prioritized for care over people who don't have that. Is that kind of the gist of her take there?
I mean, that's basically the thrust of what she says. There's a certain logic there. If you think about treatments for elderly people, treatments for people with chronic conditions and disabilities, cystic fibrosis, Down syndrome, that kind of thing, then the treatments may actually only add a little bit to their life. It may not extend their life very much. It may only improve their life a little bit. But obviously, the people who are suffering from these conditions would argue that that's still very, very worthwhile because it improves their lives a little bit. But if you apply a metric such as this very rigorously, you might find that those people are discriminated against. I mean, it's worth pointing out, though, that there are already clauses within all the laws around Medicare and Medicaid that prohibit such kinds of discrimination.
So should QALY be banned? I know you referenced an article in your blog that talks about how people with disabilities and chronic illnesses can actually experience the greatest gains when it comes to improving health. And it kind of seems like there's a little bit of, not quite understanding how it could be used. What do you think about that?
Yes, the journal was in the American Medical Association journal, and they analysed this bill and they analysed the effects of it, and they obviously concluded very differently to the sponsors of the bill that actually QALY doesn't discriminate against people with chronic conditions, and in fact can help them in a lot of ways, and they can actually see the biggest gains. And this really illustrates one of the issues with legislation, a bit like this, is that who's right? Well, I don't know, because I'm not a doctor and I'm not a researcher. And in fact, neither are the legislators who are drafting the legislation, and yet they are disagreeing with the actual genuine experts at the American Medical Association. So there's an argument to be said that a very sweeping legislation of this kind that just bans something is not the way to go, because it's a very nuanced issue, and particularly with QALY, it's an algorithm effectively, which can be adjusted. So if you think it discriminates against people with disabilities, you've got to adjust the algorithm so that it doesn't. There's no real justification for just banning it completely. Another element in the legislation that's a bit problematic is that it doesn't just ban QALY, it bans QALY or any similar measure. And that or any similar measure could cover a multitude of different things. And the doctors and researchers in particular are worried that the interpretation of this would be to have a chilling effect on future medical research, so that researchers would simply not actually begin research if they thought that it might fall foul of this new law.
It seems to me like this is a bill that's a little bit short-sighted, and it's not quite thinking through all of the implications of, if it were to pass, what that would mean and what would take over. And, you know, the healthcare system has finite resources, so these types of things unfortunately are part of our reality. But to just ban it with nothing, you know, or similar measures similar to it without anything to kind of take its place. I think that you had a really good quote in your blog from Joshua Cohn, who's a senior contributor at Ford's, that I think is a really great way to end this. The QALY isn't perfect, but no measure is. And let's be frank, we'll never have a measure that makes anyone happy. To ban the concept is to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
That's absolutely right, Sarah. And the important principle here is that we live in a society where we have an aging population, and older people need more healthcare. Healthcare is becoming ever more expensive, and we have fewer and fewer young people to actually pay for the healthcare that we need. So decisions have to be made. You need some basis to decide what treatment you're going to provide and what treatment you aren't going to provide in a world where resources are finite. And if you don't have measures like this that are at least sort of scientific and worked through, then it all becomes quite arbitrary, and all the funding goes to the sexy illnesses or diseases. And the actual illnesses and diseases that need the money might not get it.
That's an incredible point to end it on. This was such an interesting bill to look into. Do we have an issue voter bill for March?
We do. And in March, we're going far less controversial. We're going to talk about the Life at Conception Act, which seeks to redefine what it means to be a human being.
That sounds like an incredibly straightforward definition. I can't wait to hear more about it.